Hello and welcome to this new episode of Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers Breaking Free podcast. Today we're talking about the one thing the people pleaser, the perfectionist, and the procrastinator have in common. And most importantly, we're talking about why you need to know this. So, how many of you resonate with the pattern of people pleasing? That you find yourself unable to say no to other people and constantly running around to make everyone around you happy, running yourself exhausted in doing this? How many of you feel like the perfectionist is a big part of you, that you need things to be perfect? No matter what you're doing, you need to achieve the highest standards all the time in order to be accepted, maybe in order to be loved, in order not to be rejected, and also in order to feel good about what you're doing. Because if you don't achieve that perfect standard, then you're not actually gonna go for something. And how many of you feel like they are constantly procrastinating? Waiting, maybe coming in together with the perfectionist, waiting for the perfect conditions to start something, waiting for permission by someone else to start something or to do something, waiting for, you don't even know what you're waiting for anymore, but you're just delaying and delaying and delaying, doing that one thing or those things that you know are gonna help you achieving what you want to achieve. And if you resonate with any of these patterns, the people pleaser, the perfectionist, or the procrastinator, I want you to know that there's no judgment here. That's just what it is. That is what all these three things have in common. And I kind of already given it away. I said it to you. They are all survival patterns. That's what these three things have in common. That's what the people pleaser, the perfectionist, and the procrastinator have in common. They're survival patterns. And why is this important to know? There's the key. When you take these aspects as labels that define you, so you say, oh, I'm a perfectionist, I'm a chronic procrastinator, I am a people pleaser, and you declare this to the world as part of who you are, as your personality almost, like that's who you are, and these patterns start defining you as who you are, then you're stuck with these patterns forever, one or more, because one doesn't exclude the other. They often come together, actually. I know I've had plenty of traits. I'm a recovering people pleaser. That's what I was doing all the time. Definitely a perfectionist, and that has held me back for ages, for years of my life. And I was procrastinating because if things weren't perfect, that I wasn't even starting. So if you're feeling like you have a bit of all of this, you're not alone. I'm there with you, and many here listening in, I know, are feeling the same. So it's really important that when you understand that these are actually coping patterns, they're survival patterns, then you know that you can shift them. And this is why it's so important to understand this common ground that these three patterns have. They are patterns. They are not you. None of these define you, define who you are. So one isn't just born a people pleaser, or one isn't born a perfectionist or a chronic procrastinator. We're not born like that. These are coping patterns that we had to develop in order to survive and live with the degree of emotional and very often physical unsafety that we have growing up with a narcissistic mother or with narcissistic parents. So we developed and we adapted to survive with these patterns from a very young age. And by doing that, we almost feel like these are defining traits. We feel that's just who I am, because for as long as you can remember, you've been a perfectionist. For as long as you can remember, you've been a people pleaser. For as long as you can remember, you've been a procrastinator. Why? Because we've developed these coping strategies very, very early on. It's only when we're a few months old that we're already beginning to look at our mother, and if she's self-absorbed, emotionally unsafe, emotionally immature, unable to regulate her own nervous system, we are already beginning as children of a mother like that. We're beginning to regulate for her. This happens when we're very, very young. And so from that point on, we're already developing these strategies to keep her happy so that we can survive. Because at that very young age, it literally means survival. If she's not available to provide for you, feed you, care for you, see to your needs, then the infant, you're gonna die. Yeah, that's literally a survival thing. So we learn really young to adapt and keep her happy. And you've heard this before. We learn to be responsible for her nervous system, for her emotions. We learn that. And so we develop ways to not only keep her regulated, but also get her attention and not get her rejection. And this could be the people pleasing, this can be the perfectionism, this can be the procrastination. They come from these deeply rooted survival patterns. So what is a coping pattern? We need to understand that because I've used this word a few times. So if you're new to this podcast and you don't know what this means, this is a pattern that, as I mentioned, you have adapted, you've created in order to survive. But what does it look like? Well, a coping pattern is, you can imagine it as a well-traveled motorway in your nervous system, in your system of thoughts, in your system of beliefs, in your actual physiology of your nervous system. There's like a big 4-lane motorway that is that pattern. And when something happens, when a situation happens that triggers you in that response, triggers some wounding, some trauma in your system that you may not even be aware is there, because we don't even notice. Very often we're so used to go down this motorway that we don't even know when we start going down. We're finding ourselves driving down the motorway and we don't even know that we've gotten into the car. We don't even know that we've started the journey. We're just doing it by default because that's just the way our nervous system and our entire system is wired to go. Okay, so you have this well-traveled motorway, one that you're so used to take, and it has sort of brought you where you needed before. Because you've survived. We said these are survival patterns, so the aim of this pattern was to help you survive. And you are here now today, so you have survived. Well done. Like, that's success. For those patterns, that's success. So that motorway has brought you sort of to where you wanted to go for quite some time, for many, many years, for many of us. But the issue is that even if the situation isn't there anymore, because it isn't, you're not an infant anymore, you do not depend on your mother in order to survive in this world anymore. You don't depend on her emotional safety or stability in order to survive. Yes, of course, if she's emotionally unsafe and abusive, that's hurtful. But now you've got the power to step away from there. You have the power to exit a room. You have the power to provide for yourself, which you didn't have when you were an infant. So the situation has changed. And yet, because that pattern is so familiar, that motorway is so big, we still keep going down. We still take that same motorway, even though the situation isn't that anymore. It's like you've been going on a forest path and once upon a time you've met a bear. and a bear came out from behind a boulder. And now every single boulder that you see down a different forest path where there's no bears, you've been told there's no bears down that path, you're safe to go, but you still jump and run away anytime you see a boulder, just in case there was a bear. But there's no bear. You've been told this path is safe, there's no bears here, and yet you still jump. That's a really normal way for the nervous system to operate. It operates on reaction, on habitual reaction, working on what we have as stored memory in our nervous system. Our nervous system takes stock of all the experiences that we've had, starting at a very, very young age, and maps itself, creates these motorways, creates a map of motorways in order for you to survive. And then, unless we do the work to remap it, it just keeps going down those motorways, no matter what's happening. So now, where you want to go is completely different, because your aim right now in life is not to survive anymore, is to thrive, is to live your life, is to expand, is to have a happy, joyful life, being your authentic self. That's why you're here listening to this podcast, I know. But the patterns are still working as if your aim was only the one to survive. And so we come to the point where what brought you to here, so what helped you survive to today, will not get you there. What brought you to here won't get you there. What brought you to here, surviving, will never get you to thriving. We cannot thrive if we're going unchecked down the motorway of perfectionism. We cannot thrive if we go down unchecked on the motorway of people-pleasing. You know that very well. And I know that very well. I remember the moment when I was in a group of people that I was involved with this group because of my daughters. They were parents of friends of my daughters, and it was quite a big group. And I remember saying at one point to my husband, "Oh, you know what? Like, I don't have disagreement with anyone in this group. You know, everyone gets on with me." And that struck me because it was like, wow, that is really the same pattern as in my family. It's a very big family, lots of divorces, so we've got a lot of new family members that came with new partners and stuff, so it's a big family. And when I was younger and I was still in contact with most of them, it was like everyone got on with me. They all had grudges with one another, but I was the one person that they all got on with. And so it was like, isn't that interesting that I'm still falling into that people-pleasing pattern? Because it's absolutely impossible that out of 40 people, there isn't even one person that doesn't really like me. I mean, that would be just statistically normal, yeah? That there would be at least one person that doesn't really like me. But that didn't happen because I was so stuck down the motorway of people-pleasing that I was molding myself constantly to make sure that I was making everyone happy. And of course, everyone liked me. That's a very likable thing. I mean, someone that just bends over backwards to make sure you're happy. It's a very likable thing, but it was exhausting for me. And funnily enough, when I actually started rewiring that aspect and stopped behaving like that, there were a good few people that didn't like me that much anymore. That's kind of part of it. When you start rewiring these patterns and you become the real you, not everyone will stick around, but that's for a different episode. But that's the importance of understanding that people-pleasing, perfectionism, and procrastination have this thing in common. They are all survival patterns. And because of that, they are all patterns that you can shift. Any pattern can be shifted. So we have this big wide motorway that's well-traveled. Now what we need to do is to start looking in a different direction and go, oh, there's this small little path. It's like a trail at the moment, and it's overgrown with bushes and stuff. So I need to sort of start exploring how I can make this path a little bit bigger, a little bit wider. And at the beginning, this takes practice, because the nervous system and your entire belief system, your thought patterns are going to want to go down the motorway. They're going to want to keep going down the motorway. We know this motorway. Why would you want to go this other way that we don't know, that we haven't tested before? Sure, there's that Matilda one on the podcast that says that we should try this, but that's nuts, because I have never tried that path before and it may lead me to death, because that's what the nervous system says. Remember, when you were an infant, not going with this adaptive pattern, with this survival pattern, would actually mean literal death. So your nervous system is still there. That young part of you is still going, we're gonna die if we try this different path. But that's not true. That's not true. Actually, that this different path, when we start exploring it one little step at a time, we don't have to do it all too soon and all together, but one step at a time, it then starts becoming the new motorway. And you're gonna start noticing the very big difference that this makes in your life. Because as a people pleaser, how wonderful would it be to just go and be able to say no to someone when you actually need to prioritize yourself? Or as a perfectionist, how wonderful would it be to actually be able to take a chill pill every now and again and not having to do everything to such a high standard that's draining your energy and giving you very little satisfaction. Because for a perfectionist, enough is never enough. You actually, because perfection doesn't exist, right? So you never get to that perfect perfection. You are constantly chasing it. And that's exhausting. I know, I've done it for so long. And as a procrastinator, how wonderful would it be to actually be able to take that first step and begin to see results? Instead of seeing that mountain of stuff that is getting more and more, all the undealt things that you're not doing, actually start taking the steps and see that mountain of stuff getting a little smaller, because you're taking the actions that you need to take. And you're taking them today as opposed to putting them sometime in the future. It would be wonderful. I can tell you it is wonderful. As a recovering people pleaser and perfectionist and procrastinator, I'm still working on the procrastination a little bit. I'm still working on the three of them, because there's never an end to this work, and you can keep getting deeper and deeper through the layers of the different parts. But as someone that's been recovering for a while on these patterns, I can tell you it is actually wonderful to feel like, I can just be myself with these people. And if they don't like me, you know what, it's fine. We're gonna be fine. We're not gonna die. It's okay not to be perfect. You know what? We're not gonna die. We're gonna be fine. It's okay to take this next step on something that I wanna do. You know what? We're not gonna die by taking this next step. We're actually gonna be fine. This is the message that you can give your nervous system again and again and again, so that you start overcoming these patterns and you start becoming you. Because I hear all the time, a lot of you have done the coping pattern assessment, and if you haven't yet, there's the link in the description of this episode. I invite you to go do it, because these patterns I'm talking about today, the people pleaser, the perfectionist, the procrastinator, are deeply rooted in the four main patterns that are part of the assessment: the overachiever, the rescuer, the invisible one, and the peacekeeper. These are at the root of what then becomes the people pleaser, the perfectionist, and the procrastinator. So go do that, because that's going to give you great information, and it's going to bring these patterns into your awareness in a way that then you can work with. So many of you have completed the coping pattern, and many of you have spoken to the fact that there's despite knowing so much, despite having listened to many podcasts, despite having learned so much, despite having done so much rational work, and I'm going to call it rational work because it's based on rational information or on absorbing information from the outside in, you are aware of so much, but yet when you go back home to your mother, or when you are in situations that your mother isn't there, but they're similar, they triggered those inner memories, those stored memories, and these patterns just keep on repeating. So many of you have said, I'm aware of the patterns, but I don't know how to shift them. It's one of the most common answer that I get to one of the questions. I'm aware of the patterns, but I don't know how to shift them. And that's the note, isn't it? How do we shift them? So you're talking about these patterns. You're telling us that the people pleaser, the perfectionist, and the procrastinators are all patterns, so we can shift them. So how do we do that? And that's the key point. How we do that is by going into the body. Is by doing, there's a very specific type of work that is somatic work, but a specific type of somatic work, not just any somatic work. By somatic work, I don't mean just go in and feel your body, but somatic work by going in and actually addressing, finding where those pockets in your body are, where those stored memories are, working with your parts so that you can give your entire system a different experience and remap. And the remapping is what opens up the new trails. And so your system stops reacting and going down that motorway, but starts actually going down the new pathways that you're opening up with the work that you're putting in intentionally with guidance, because this is something that really I want to say you can't do by yourself. Can you do it by yourself? It's a tricky thing, because to do it by yourself, you need to be so incredibly aware of all your blind spots, which is almost impossible. They're called blind spots for a reason, because we can't see them for ourselves. And so what tends to happen when people do this work by themselves and without guidance is that you can get really good at some aspects. You can get really good and noticing some patterns, and then you get cocky and you think you've done the work. I meet quite a few people in this branch of work that would say, "Oh, I've done my inner work," and I love that sentence. It makes me smile with love and compassion, because this work is never done. If you're going around saying, "I have done my inner work," then it means there are blind spots there. And I have to be very honest and direct on this, because you can't get it done. You can't get it done. I mean, there's always going to be a new situation that is going to bring on some aspects of a pattern. Something will come up. And so you will discover a new layer, and a new blind spot is going to become obvious. But when you have guidance from someone else, that person, that coach, that mentor is there to actually support you and see those blind spots for you and help you bringing them into the light. And so a work that would take you years and a lot of pain, I can tell you that for a fact, because I've tried to do it by myself for a long time, and that has brought me a lot of pain. Because usually when you don't see a blind spot and you want to do it all by yourself, you got to whack your face into that wall a few times before you actually become aware of that blind spot. I mean, you want to trip over it and get hurt, and then you start going, ooh, there was a blind spot there. So having someone that guides you saves you years of pain, saves you years of pain. And how precious are years of your life? I know for myself, and I've been put face to face with how precious my life is recently, especially since my health hasn't been at the best in the last 8 months. And for those of you who have asked, the trend is up and things are getting better, thankfully. But there have been moments where it has been very clear, wow, my life is really, really, really precious. And I am not willing anymore to spend years and years and years trying to figure this out. years of pain. I'm done with that. I am so done with that. I actually want to get ahead and reclaim my life and stop feeling all this pain just for the sake of doing it by myself. And so I don't do it by myself anymore. I've got a beautiful team of people that support me on this. And so the invitation is, first of all, go down, if you haven't done it, go into the description and do the coping pattern profile assessment so that you're gonna know, okay, is it the overachiever, the rescuer, the invisible one, or the peacekeeper that is my main coping pattern? And from there, you'll see, because the overachiever is very often a perfectionist. The procrastinator can be a part of the overachiever, that actually you keep wanting to overachieve, but you don't allow yourself to actually achieve because you're procrastinating. At the same time, the invisible one, the rescuer, the peacekeeper, they can all have elements of people pleasing. They can have elements of procrastination because they want, if the invisible one procrastinates in order not to become visible. The peacekeeper procrastinates because maybe if they actually go and pursue their own things, there's going to be conflict elsewhere. They're going to have to drop the ball on keeping the peace among other people. So you see how these are all interconnected together. So go and do the coping pattern assessment. And I strongly invite you to book a free application call at the end of it, because in that call, you're going to receive support from me one-on-one on the result that you found out in the assessment. So that way you're gonna get even more guidance, and that's how you take your first step, not to do it alone, not to go at it alone, because alone it's really, really damn hard. And you don't need to do this alone. That's why we're here. That's why we do this work. Me and so many out there that are doing this work. So yeah, for today, that's how I'm going to leave you. I'm looking forward to see your results in the coping pattern assessment and to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to wish you a wonderful rest of your week and lots of love. Bye for now.